Hello, good morning, good afternoon. It depends on which part of the world you are. I will present a paper. So let me introduce myself. First of all, my name is Hernán Palau. I belong to the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina. And I will present a paper that the name is Peru's Poultry Agribusiness System, Current Situation and Perspectives. The first author is Laura Zaña, myself, Hernán Palau, Sebastián Senesi, and Fernando Bogni. This is my presentation overview. First of all, I will introduce the topic. Then I will introduce the theoretical framework and methods. After that, my results and the final considerations. The poultry world production has increased 225% in the last 15 years. Most consumers are United States, China, European Union, Brazil, and Mexico, and India, and biggest producers are United States, Brazil, the European Union, and China. So we can see here that most consumers are also the most producers in a way. Which were the drivers of why the world production had increased so much? Well, first of all, the higher consumption, and this consumption was a result of lower production costs and lower prices, and higher demand of meat in the Southeast Asian countries, and finally, some healthy issues in terms of consumers. What about in Peru? The poultry agribusiness systems has increased in production in the last 15 years from 622,000 tons in 2000 to 1,900 million tons of poultry in 2018. It is an average increment of 6.8% annually. In that period, the demand of poultry meat in Peru rose from 21 kilos per person per year to 46 kilos per person per year. So we can see here in this graph the production, the level of production of Peru, and imports and exports they are not so significant. So the present work arises in order to analyze and understand the development of the poultry agribusiness system, as well as the limitations that the system currently has. Our theoretical framework is based on the new institutional economics by analyzing institutional environment, organizational environment, and technological environment. We have used some authors like North, Alcham, Demsetz, Williamson, Powell, Ordóñez, and other authors. And the main concepts are formal and informal institutions and the degree of enforcement or level of enforcement of this law, or level of institutional enforcement, the organizational structure, the behavioral assumptions, transaction attributes, and the governance structures, and finally, the process technology, product technology, and innovation paradigm. Our procedures, it's more a systemic analysis. So we have conducted a mapping of the agribusiness system, first of all, then the correct structural analysis, that is analysis of institutional, organizational, and technological environment, by using the documentary analysis, observation, and in-depth interviews. The mapping of the system gives us that this poultry agribusiness system in Peru is represented by two subsystems. One, we call it as industrial subsystem with 30% of total production, which is represented by large and medium scale companies, industrial plants, frozen chickens or processing plants, frozen chicken that are sold in supermarkets or restaurants, and with high level of food safety standards. The non-industrial subsystem that represents 70% of total production is based on medium and small companies in alive markets or wholesale markets. The 95% of total slaughter is carried out in places without authorization in wholesale markets. There are no standards and no quality and food safety conditions. This is how the chicken is sold in these markets. So they catch the chicken alive, and then they slaughter the chicken in this kind of butchers in wholesale markets with some conditions, sanitary conditions that are not so oriented to food safety. Here you can see how this chicken is offered to the consumers. Here you can see another picture, and here it's a typical butcher that sells chicken and other meat cuts. And here finally you can see these conditions, the conditions of chicken is sold. So in order to understand why these two subsystems, first of all, we can say that the legal framework established with laws and policies related to agricultural sector, which have focused on the creation, development, and expansion and consolidation of the modern agricultural sector in Peru. The impact of these regulations on the poultry sector has made it possible to establish the rules of the actors in the poultry chain and the respective sanctions of non-compliance, thus providing a legal framework within which the Peruvian poultry business system has been developed. However, there is a low enforcement of the law. So the food safety and food quality conditions are very low, especially in this non-industrial subsystem, and there is a high level of double standards and informality of slaughtering and no traceability. In terms of the organization and analysis, in some cases the players may be the same in both subsystem, industrial and non-industrial subsystem. But we can say that in non-industrial subsystem there are low-scale players with low levels of investment and knowledge, high presence of opportunism, and there are no product specifications, for instance, weight, color or freshness, and there is no correct define of ex-ante condition. The results are high level of transaction cost. The industrial subsystem, on the other hand, is based in larger scale companies with international technology investments. For instance, suppliers of inputs and genetics are similar to those present in the first level countries, the US or Brazil. There is a higher concentration, especially in the processing plants or processing companies, but there are some agreements or contracts with fattening producers with rules of games that are clearer than in non-industrial subsystem, and there is a commitment to comply with them. There is a high level of self-enforcement. So the results are lower transaction costs. It's important to mention also that there are some association of producers and processing plants in the industrial subsystem that promote chicken consumption in the domestic market. But there is a big problem because sometimes the same consumer could go to the industrial or non-industrial subsystem, or maybe some chicken could go to the supermarket but was delivered from the non-industrial subsystem, and for the consumer it's totally the same. So there are some difficulties to differentiate the quality of the products by the consumers. The level of technology used in the Peruvian poultry agribusiness systems influences the efficiency of its production results. For instance, in the non-industrial subsystem, rudimentary technologies prevail, where quality and productive efficiency are low. There is a need of labor to cover the use of machinery. The labor use is not specialized and has low salary, so that they are higher cost, but it is compensated with no taxes paid, evade municipal operating costs, and labor wages. On the other hand, the leading companies within the industrial poultry agribusiness system compete to reduce their production cost, increasing efficiency and performance, high specialization of labor force, implementation of international certification quality, and health control. So in order to conclude, my final considerations are related to limitations and managerial implications. Even though the increment of the production, there are limitations of higher production, and especially there are limitations for exports because of this non-industrial subsystem could not achieve other foreign markets in order to provide with poultry to external consumers. So the only subsystem that could export is the non-industrial, that in a way, for instance, the industrial subsystem, but in a way is it has some problem to achieve other markets because the reputation of the whole country is low in order to enter to other countries. So that the low enforcement of the law lets us to identify two subsystems that are totally different in scale, in level of investments, in quality and safety, and transaction cost, and development and productivity. In this scenario, industrial subsystem organizations invest and promote efficiency. Non-industrial subsystems jeopardize the whole system, mainly because some consumers do not distinguish differences of quality or quality, and there are some limitations to export. Part of the solution would come from lobbying of associations to promote formalization of the non-industrial subsystem. Thank you very much. My name is Hernán Palau, and here it's my email at hpalau@agro.uva.ar, and I open for your questions. Thank you.